All right, so we live. We back at it.
Back at it again. Brothers Keepers Podcast, episode
3.
3.
Yes, sir.
About time?
This one is about time.
About time.
Time is definitely important and valuable to everybody, you know. So based off of the chain of events that's been going on in my life, it definitely is making me look at it, you know, from a whole different aspect, you know, even just what comes with it. You know what I mean? I don't know if you follow me just yet, but the definition of time, the indefinite continued progress of existence and events in the past, present, future, regarded as a whole, a point of time as measured in hours and minutes past midnight or noon.
That's a lot, man.
That is a lot.
That's a mouthful.
That is
so
a lot.
if I had to take you off Google for a second and just say, how would you describe time?
Time.
As far as its effect on your life and what it means to you.
Oh, let's get to it. Let's get straight to it. Time in general, what it means to everybody's life, you know, because the thing about time is it's not just about me. You know, I can give you my personal preference, but
that's what I want. I want the real.
You want the real?
Yeah, I want the real.
It's valuable. It's important to the point that every minute and second counts. It's that lucrative for you to pay attention to how you use it. Mm-hmm. Because if it's used improperly, it's got a crazy effect if it's not used properly. Also, the thing about time and my personal preference is the fact that you don't know how much you have.
Right.
You know,
it's relative.
The pastor that I was actually listening to the other day, her name is
name drop.
Yeah,
her
name. Yeah, it's a female.
Her
female.
Oh, then nothing that she said is legit.
Oh no,
it's a female.
Don't do that.
No controversy.
Controversy.
We hear.
Why wouldn't anything what's right is right. What's wrong is wrong.
That's a fact. That's a fact. But female pastor should be oxymoron.
Okay.
I mean, it should be.
Okay.
Not to say that you can't be a wise woman.
Right.
Like most of the women I know is wise, but female pastors are oxymoron. But that's another subject.
I mean, but that's a subject that we can actually tap into a little bit because, you know, it was crazy back in the day. When I used to go to church with mom and a female pastor would step up and, you know, they would say she was about to, you know, preach or whatever. Mm. You know, mom was like, we out.
Yeah.
And back then I didn't understand it. You know, I was like,
because it's just an indicator that you're not operating. And it's not that say she got up and preached a bad sermon or that, you know, it wasn't biblically sound what she was saying. It's not saying none of that, even that she's not a good pastor or don't have the ability to do it.
Right.
But that's not how it's supposed to go. You know, people get caught up in their own little definition of what's what.
Is it because she's not supposed to lead?
No, well, not in the Bible specifically says it. Like,
that's what I wanted you to tap into.
In the church,
go ahead.
You know,
right?
Apostle Paul said women's supposed to keep quiet,
right?
You know, and I think there's a couple of different ways to interpret what he means by keep quiet, like completely silent. Right. Like you have people that dispute that, but
because you can't tell a woman to just
you
be
can.
Quiet.
Now, are they going to do it? Maybe some will, some won't. Right. But that's the whole submission thing that we all have to do in different ways.
Absolutely.
But, you know, some women ain't going to go for that. So my thing is, you know, it's not biblically sound. You can do it if you want. They do a lot of other things that you ain't really supposed to do. So that's cool. That's the type time they on.
That's the type time. Right, exactly.
Then,
exactly.
You know, you could do what you do, but it ain't biblically sound. And that's just an indicator for a lot of people to say, okay, you know, it might be a good church. They might have this going on, that going on, but they not following the doctrine the way that we know, because that's not even disputed.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, that's not even a thing. And the world we live in today is so sensitive. You know, that's why I said you can't even, like you said, you know, you can make certain statements to certain women will accept it and certain won't, you know, but the majority won't because of how sensitive and suppressed that sounds to, you know, this generation, this group.
I shared on my Facebook earlier today, Obama had a quote saying, you know, the world could use more female leadership because the men have been messing everything up and da-da-da-da-da. And that's the wave right now, bro. It's just like girl power. It's like, it's out here.
Right.
You know what I mean? Women smarter than men. They more educated. They making more money. Like, girl power is here.
Why is it like that when we already been set up to be who we are? You know, you have a role, you know, because at the end of the day, what she said was lucrative. And really, I had to search her actually saying it because it was a man that actually said
She
it.
was repeating that to somebody else.
He was repeating after her.
Oh, he was repeating after her.
He was repeating after her. You know, and I'm just doing the same thing, right? So
Yeah, I mean, you know,
but
truth is truth. You can spread it.
what she said is in terms of time, procrastination affects time.
Ooh, procrastination.
Procrastination. What she said was procrastination suggests that life is on our schedule. Procrastination is the arrogant assumption that God will give you another chance in the future instead of for what you need to do today.
What you think about that?
I just thought that was powerful because when we talking about time, how many ways and because there's so many layers, do we procrastinate no matter what it is? You know, whether it's a bill you got to pay, you know, whether it's a relationship on things that you know you should change, whether it being with your spouse, whether it being with a family member, no matter what it is, it's the procrastination, you know. It's like a justification that we're creating, like we have all the time in the world when we don't.
Right.
You know, God says that tomorrow is not promised. You know, so that lets you know alone, you really don't know how much time you have. You know, time is that important. You know, when you wake up, why is it that we can wake up every morning and say, I got to be up at 6 o'clock because I got to be to work at 7. And I know I'm going to get off at 4 and then I got to pick up my kids at 5:30. Now we distinguish that time, the things we need to do in that time frame because it's only 24 hours a day. You know, you got to go to sleep and things like that. But why don't we decipher everything else in our life in terms of time and how important it is? The decisions we make, you know.
Who says we don't do that? Because I think that's what milestones are,
Right.
which I think is a great look into our culture right now and how behind a lot of people are in terms of certain milestones, or at least ideal milestones that used to be an ideal anyway.
Right.
I think that's how most people do look at life. They expect, you know, by 18, you should be done with high school.
Right.
You know, unless something happened and you missed a year or you messed up somewhere, 18, you should be done high school, either in college, in a trade, in the military, whatever you're going to do. You should be at that next phase of your life.
And then when you don't get there,
then you start to have some of the issues that come along with the stigma of not reaching your milestones when you're supposed to reach them. It's a lot of 30
causes anxiety.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's like a normal thing. Like anxiety is not bad. Like people talk about anxiety and it's always in a negative kind of way. Like
Toxic.
You're not supposed to have anxiety. Like anxiety, you know, and I told you this before, that's just your body telling you like, look, this is important, right? This is important to us. Your mind is telling your body like,
It's time to make a change.
this is important. Like
Right.
this is something that affects us. Pay attention to this thing.
Right.
And, you know, I think an anxiety disorder is like, you know, I can't function because my anxiety is crippling. Right. But that's not the same as just having anxiety. Anxiety is just an emotion. You know what I mean? I shared something on my Facebook a couple weeks ago. It got me in trouble with some people, but I posted, you remember the drum we used to have on the fridge when we was kids? It had, how are you feeling today? And it had the little boy with all the different faces. And then you put the box on what his emotion was. And I always remember it because like when mom and dad used to fight,
Yeah.
mom would put the box on the one that she was
real?
feeling. I don't know if you remember that, but if you ask her, she'd say, like, I remember because, you know, they used to argue with him, argue or whatever.
Right.
And I just noticed I come downstairs and look at the fridge and the little box is on frustrated or
Right.
something like that. But I shared a picture of that old thing and I was like, you know, all these emotions, these are normal human emotions. You're not like functioning poorly because you experience these negative emotions. The
Right.
idea that we're not supposed to experience negative emotions is, I think, as harmful as the disorders themselves. Because anytime you feel
agree.
one, you feel like, well, I'm not supposed to feel this
panic.
way. You know what I
Right.
mean?
No, I
And then that adds to the anxiety or whatever. But I think the point that I was trying to make before I went off on that whole story
Yeah.
was that time does give us anxiety. And if we don't reach those certain milestones, you know, it's a lot of women now entering into their 30s or late 20s, early 30s, and they're like, well, I really want to have a kid, right? I didn't find my husband yet. I'm not married. If they even still want a husband.
Right.
And, now they have that social anxiety or that social pressure or just that biological clock that women have that's telling them like, look, this is the time if you want to have kids naturally and healthy children, right? Because the older you get, the more the risk factors go up for, complications in pregnancy.
Right.
Like that's part of that time thing. Like we all have those things. If I'm 55 and I still don't know what I want to do for a living, that's relative to the time that I've been on Earth. So
can you control time?
No.
Right.
No.
Right.
You can't control much. All you can all you can really control is how you feel about things. And that all the time you can't even control. Right. How you want to perceive things or how you want to allow things to affect you.
But you wouldn't agree that time management is important for
absolutely.
everything?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Because I'll give you an example. If I told you had 1,000 days to live, right? You knew 1,000 days from today you were going to die.
Right.
There would still be days in there that you procrastinated. Right. I don't think the human brain is meant to go, 100 miles an hour constantly at all times.
Right.
Right. So you need like rest as part of a healthy schedule, right? Breaks, leisure time, playing, like relaxation and also work.
Right.
And hyper focusing, like all of that stuff,
is important.
Yeah. But time is, you can't really do anything about it, but you should, if that makes any sense. You can't do anything about it, but you should do something about it.
Right.
Right. That's kind of,
and the only way to do something about it is to have time management.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But, and then you got to remember too, that varies from person to person.
Right.
It's not going to look the same. And that's the thing with the, the social reconstructionists that we have now, that want to tear down everything, all the ideas we grew up with, and somehow they're now bad or whatever. But anyway, like that's one part of it I feel like I can understand is there was such a cookie cutter ideal for so many different kinds of people, right? Is, go to school, get a career or go to college, right? It was very like XYZ, get married at this age, do this at this age. And that's not really realistic. But the goals themselves are not bad just because the time frame may not fit for every single person. So I feel like when it comes to that, like people threw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. It's like, oh, well, I'm not going to hit this particular milestone at this particular age. So therefore, this milestone is bad. And adherence to any of these social codes or these social stigmas, they're all bad because I didn't hit this particular one. Like I'm 31 and I didn't get married. So obviously.
And everybody reaches things at different times.
Right. And it's always been that way. Right. But I think and then when I say we, I mean our generation and the people who raised a lot of us, just drilled this idea into our heads that it was supposed to be this specific way. And
I hate that.
It's not really that way for anybody.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that those things aren't still valuable.
No, they're not valuable, but trying to follow that and then things not working out in your favor, you feel defeated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And that's where a lot of the depression and stuff comes from.
Right.
Or this is my theory. I'm not a medical professional. But I think, because I think the biggest factor in life that can determine like your outlook on things and how you feel about, just what you go through is I always say manage your expectations.
Okay.
Because if you can manage your expectations about something, then it's going to be hard for things to really rock your boat.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you manage your expectations as far as like just tomorrow going to work, right? And you don't really expect it to be a good day and it's not a good day.
Then you
don't care.
Right.
But if you think tomorrow you're going to get called into the office and somebody told you was getting a $60,000 pay raise or something crazy like that, or you was going to get this new promotion you've been waiting for or something like that, and you don't get it, the same exact events can happen in that day. Absolutely. But because of your expectations of what was supposed to happen, now that triggers the negative emotions, right? So a lot of that comes in your expectations.
Right.
And the same thing, reaching these time frames and these milestones, if you manage the expectations like, I'm supposed to go to college for 4 years and graduate by the age of 22 versus I'm supposed to go to college and graduate.
Right.
Period. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
I just
need to get it done.
Yeah.
Don't put a time frame on it because
Well, you can. It's not nothing wrong with setting a goal, but trying to make everybody ascribe to that same exact model, it's not really feasible because everybody's different. It don't matter where you come from.
right.
So
Right. No, I definitely agree with you on that. But it's important to all of us. It's the management that I feel of it, that should be valued. I think if we don't care, like you said, you gave the example of 1,000 days. If I was to live and then die 1,000 days, there would still be some procrastination or whatever else. But I mean, in that case, you're looking at it like, I'm really about to go. So why not, right? You could look at it like that, or you can say, no, I need to get these certain things done in this amount of time because I know I'm going, and let's talk about lost souls. How many people are dying because you're dying lost due to the fact that they didn't manage their time on earth? We're given different chances for different scenarios and situations, and, part of you is, could be saying it, I'm gonna get it right one day. And the other half is like, maybe not.
I'm afraid for people in America.
Okay. Talk about it.
Because why you laughing?
I'm trying to see where this is going.
Because in America, we all know Jesus.
Absolutely.
All of us. Nobody who was born in this country, who has been in this country for a full year, or probably even less than that, depending on when they came. And anybody that's anywhere that's associated, unless you're on some remote planet or not planet, but part of the world where the mission hasn't got to, where the commission hasn't reached, we've all heard the name Jesus. We all know what the gospel is relatively. We might not be biblically sound as far as doctrine, but we understand what the story is.
Right.
And to be in this country, right, which has a lot of Christian culture, and to still reject God, or not even reject God, but to postpone your relationship with him until death, really, which when you don't know is coming, like,
but I
follow. Gonna be a lot of sorry people.
Right. It's gonna be a lot of sorry people
on Judgment Day.
Right.
Because they're gonna say, or at least in my imagination, they're gonna be like, man, I knew I should have.
I ran out of time.
That's what they're gonna say.
This is why I wanted to have this discussion.
Yeah.
And this is why I felt like it was important. Like I said, there's layers to it.
Let me give you another layer.
Yeah.
Not non-believers. What about all the believers?
That's what I'm right in reference to them
who have verbally and maybe even emotionally, spiritually uttered the words, right, or believe in their hearts that they're committed to Christ and committed to the gospel, but they're not doing the work on themselves.
Right.
Right? Because it says Judgment Day, he either going to say, depart from me, I never knew you, or well done, my good and faithful servant.
Right.
And most Christians, I think if they were honest, maybe not in a conversation, but if they were honest with themselves, if you were to ask them if they died today, do you think God would look at you and say, well done, my good and faithful servant?
Right.
Not that you would necessarily go to hell, because maybe you really do believe.
Right.
And, according to my Bible, that's enough.
Right.
You confess with your mouth and believe in your heart, but did you do the work? Did you do the labor?
Right.
Right? Is God going to look at you and say, well done, my good and faithful servant, or is he going to say, all right, come on. You know what I mean? Like, not that he's going to be like that, but
that's the thing, even with time, though, we have to understand we all have a calling.
Yeah.
We all are here uniquely to do something.
Yep.
During our time here.
Yep.
The same way you go to work and you got to clock in, and during that time you got to do work. We are called to do, and we have to do it within the time frame. And if we don't, and if the believers or the non-believers, don't, when it does come down to it, to that day, and he's saying turn away, is because you didn't do it. And your time, when I go to work and they call me in the office and they say, yo, I got to let you go. I got fired from Walmart back in the day for that. I was a young boy, but it was like, you're just not performing right.
They told you that?
Yeah. You just like,
How did it feel getting fired?
But I knew I was slacking though. Like I knew, because I was fed up with the job and the work. I was like, yo, I'm not getting paid enough. I'm working overnight. You know, my girl in the crib. You know, I think
You just didn't care about it.
I just didn't care about it. I even called Kira. I was like, yo, he just fired me, bro. You know.
What'd she say? Was she supportive?
Yeah, she was like, oh, all right. I was like, yeah, I'm on
sister.
she was like, I'm on my way. I was like, I'm on my way to the crib. She was like, you know what I mean? Cool. But when it came to
Need a real one time.
But look though, when it came to jobs though, we never, you know, because at the end of the day, one thing, like I said before, God always make a way, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, in terms of that. But what I was saying was they let me go because my time management wasn't right. You know, I had a time that I had to be there. There was a time that I had to leave. And there was things that I had to do within that time. I had skids that I had to break down within that time. And I didn't. I think I had about 12 skids at the beginning of the shift. And by the end of the shift, I think I had like 9. Like I only did 3 skids. You know, I was drained and fed up, you know, but that didn't matter, you know, because I had something to do within that in that time frame. And I think for all of us, what I've been saying pretty much, you know, since we started this one in episode 3 is, you know, we got to manage everything that we do. You know, the time that you just spent with your daughter, you know, shout out to Maya.
Shout out to Maya.
You know, at her Christmas play and her performing in that, you manage your time right. You know, because you also went to work today. And there's also a father out there that said, you know what, you know, I had a long day at work, you know, oh man, you know, I got to do this podcast. Oh, you know, hey Maya, I'm not gonna be able to make this one. You know, and then something detrimental happened the next day. Then you know what I mean. So this is why time to me is just, I can't say it enough. It's lucrative for all of us to put it in perspective. Put what's important in perspective because of the time that we have.
I feel you,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna push back on that
Go
a
ahead.
little bit because I do think time is important, and I believe it's reasonable to assume that you're gonna wake up tomorrow if you're not sick, right? It's no guarantees,
Right.
but I think it's a pretty safe bet. It's a reasonable assumption to make that you're gonna be alive tomorrow and next year and whatever, unless you have evidence to the contrary, right? We should live our lives as if we expect to be here, unless we have a reason to believe we won't. And when I say that, what I'm really trying to get at is you can't micromanage every aspect of your life because, like I said, even with the 1,000-day thing, you just can't go 100 all the time. It's
Right.
impossible.
It is impossible, right?
You focus on like it's attention span, fatigue sets.
But the thing about that is right, because nobody's perfect. I mean, you had to be perfect to be able to do
even
that.
if you was perfect,
But-
you would have to be other than human. Like that's just not a.
That would be perfect because ain't no human walking the
that's
surface
true.
perfect. You know what I mean? But but what we need to come to understanding is the fact that we need to narrow down. Like everything doesn't always have to be 100 in terms of, you know, because there's too many aspects of life.
So if you told
But when
me
you
I had 1,000 days to live,
Right.
and I was gonna either do my bucket list or get my affairs in order in 1,000 days, if it looked like my last 1,000 days were gonna be like, I guess, busy,
Right.
then you had to schedule in breaks, right? And vacations. It's just like, you know, you're gonna grind this year. You know, I've been a contractor, you know, in my career, and it's been times where I had to work, you know, 7-8 months straight and be off for a little bit. Like, but for that time I was working, you know, around the clock, I really had to go in. But I knew that after that period was done, I had to take that rest time because you can't be in balance and out of whack. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You only got but so much energy to really put into stuff. So the idea that you can just go no matter how much time you think you have left. But the main thing about that is the faith aspect of it. You know, if you want to go biblical and just talking about the spiritual part of life.
Right.
And if you know in your heart you on good terms with God, maybe not where you're supposed to be, but genuinely,
Right.
not in conversation with other people when they ask you.
Your personal relationship.
Your personal relationship
Right.
is in a good place, or maybe a better place than it was last year, and you're continually progressing towards, you know, who you're meant to be in Christ.
Right.
And I don't think you should have anything to fear, because when your time runs out, you know where you're going. We're not supposed to be real caught up in the
but
things.
that's what I'm saying. That's a different layer, because it's not something. I don't think you should necessarily fear time either. You know, I don't think, you know, that God
I think
wants you to
that's
do.
what I'm trying to say. It's
But-
nothing to be afraid of,
Right.
because, you know, the Bible says to lay up is better to lay up your treasures in heaven. You lay up your treasures on earth, somebody can steal it, break
Right.
into your house. And this is exact scripture, but I don't remember it verbatim. But basically it's saying, you know, you invest in things on the earth. As this earth is passing away, you rather lay up your treasures in heaven. So with the time you have in your life, you can honor God in your life.
Right.
And, you know, lay your treasures up there.
Right.
And it's no anxiety with that.
And there's no
And that's the
anxiety with
peace
that.
that come with faith.
But-
The peace that surpasses all understanding. Like, you might have a terminal illness, your bills behind, like you in debt.
Right.
You might be out of whack on earthly terms. But
because-
you got a spiritual peace, because you understand that this ain't really a big deal anyway.
But because all those things are possible,
All what things?
you getting sick, you passing away,
Yeah.
time is ticking. Make good decisions with your time.